keynote. Good morning, everybody. My name's Ted Wholesale. I'm Vice President of Marketing with eFolder. And I'm joined today by Matt Dugan, who's Technical Support Manager with Dell Appassure. Just by way of introduction for Matt, Matt has been with Appassure since before the Dell acquisition, and he is also the subject matter expert that is traveling the world, educating other Dell support centers throughout the world on the Appassure product. So Matt's going to be joining me on stage and be doing a technical demo of Appassure, Dell Appassure version 5. So to kick things off, I'm not going to talk to you today about Sumerian tablets or the history of backup, nor am I going to give away a toaster oven. But what I am going to start out the conversation on is talk about money. So what I have here is a $100 bill. And imagine, if you will, that this $100 represents a $100 of revenue opportunity in your business today. Now, backup and disaster recovery, what's so exciting about it, in our view, is that it has the potential to be the most profitable aspect of your business. And in many eFolder partners, the best in class is really, we have partners out there that are, for every $100 of revenue, they're generating $70 of gross profit every month. That's really best in class. And that is the sort of high margin, high cash flow opportunity you want to be generating in your business. The problem in the market today, in our view, is that many partners go out there and they'll partner with a BDR vendor, and they'll discover that the $70 for every $100 is not really a realistic opportunity because, number one, they discover that their cloud storage costs end up being higher than they anticipated. So that shaves $15 or $20 off that revenue opportunity. They also discover that sometimes the solutions don't work as advertised, and they've got to throw a bunch of labor and technician time at the problem, and that shaves off another 10% of the opportunity. And what you're left with, in many cases, is $30 of profit on every $100 of revenue. And that's a big problem. And so today, we're going to really focus today's conversation on how you can go out there and deploy a backup and disaster recovery solution that's complete, that's not going to chew up a lot of your technician time, so you're going to be able to expand your margins, that has capabilities like deduplication and compression, which can control your cloud storage utilization, which can cut your cloud storage costs in the solution dramatically, and get you back to that 30% cost and 70% gross margin opportunity. So who's interested in 70% gross margin opportunity in their business? That was kind of half-hearted, but so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And just to kind of touch on the agenda, I'm going to come up here on stage. So the conversation kind of starts with the business opportunity you all have in front of you. I'm going to introduce some of the key challenges that we see in the backup and disaster recovery market today and share with you some of the key problems that the combined Dell Appassure and eFolder solution solves. And the key things we solve is we help you deal with the dramatic data growth in your clients' data sets, the explosion of data. We help you control your cloud storage costs and cloud utilization. And we help you reduce the amount of labor that you need to invest in your BDR practice. And then we'll show the technology live, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So I'm not going to introduce Dell. You guys all know Dell, but you may not know eFolder. So let me just briefly introduce eFolder. eFolder is a company that's focused on cloud data protection and cloud security, and we're exclusively focused on managed service providers, solution providers, and VARs. We have over 1,000 partners throughout the world that are doing business with us today, and we partner with companies like Dell to bring best-in-class software together with our cloud solutions and BDR appliances. Really, today, partners out there, you really need a solution that handles three kinds of key challenges in the market. Number one, everyday disasters. Hardware failure is a reality, right? And the everyday disasters, this is the 90% use case, of course. But natural disasters do occur, and you do need to be prepared for them. And so a complete backup and disaster recovery solution needs to not only help prepare you and your clients for everyday disasters, but also for those natural disasters. And the name of the game is recovery and speed of recovery. So in our view, the BDR marketplace today, there's kind of 4 challenges with the first generation of BDR solutions on the market. Number 1, what we see is that sometimes you believe you've got a valid backup, but you've created an image of a server or a critical workstation, you go to do a recovery only to discover that that image is not valid and won't allow you to actually boot that system. And really, we're not going to dive into a lot of detail on this today, but this is really the core of the Appassure technology. That's really where the name comes from, is Appassure has a capability that you can actually, on a nightly basis, validate that an image of an Exchange server, a SharePoint server, or a SQL database is actually valid, and you actually can, on an automated basis, boot that server and make sure that the images that you've created, the snapshots that you've created, will actually load that server when and if you need to do a virtualized recovery. The other big challenge we see a lot of partners having is, in your BDR solution, your cloud storage utilization ends up being higher than you anticipated. eFolder, we've been deploying BDR solutions for several years, and we see this every day, that if your cloud storage utilization ends up being higher, that cuts into your margins. And so you need to be able to control that. And then one of the things that a lot of partners often do is they will reseed the data center and send a new base image to the data center in order to reduce your cloud storage utilization. That's all good and well. That's a very valid technical solution to the problem of consolidated dailies and consolidated monthlies stacking up in the data center. However, that's again, another labor cost you may have in your business that you haven't prepared for. And the name of the game here is control the cloud storage utilization, control your labor costs, and keep those margins at 65 to 70% on a recurring basis. And then last but not least, when and if you have a disaster of some kind at a client, whether it's an everyday disaster or a natural disaster, you need multiple choices in where you can actually recover your client. So if you have a site-wide disaster, if a client has a fire, flood, hurricane, natural disaster that wipes out an entire location, you need the ability to actually recover in the cloud if need be. So let me introduce the eFolder BDR for Dell Appassure. So eFolder has been working with Appassure for well over a year, and we have over 100 partners already utilizing this service. And what we're announcing today is a new component of the solution, which is a purpose-built eFolder BDR appliance that marries up with the Appassure software and our cloud. It's a Dell manufactured appliance. I'll go into greater detail about it. But let me go through this network diagram and just give you a quick overview of how the solution works. If you haven't yet used Appassure software, you deploy the agents onto the machines you're looking to protect, whether virtual machines or physical machines. These agents will create a base image first of that server, and then you do periodic snapshots based on the recovery point objectives you have for a particular client. All of those images will be stored on that BDR appliance. And then this BDR appliance is not just a storage server, it's your first line of defense if you need to do a virtualized recovery. So these BDR appliances have plenty of storage, plenty of RAM, and can allow you to actually stand up those servers and run them on a virtualized basis when and if you ever have a disaster in your clients. Now, we were just talking to a partner in the booth a couple minutes ago, and he's running Appassure, and he's using his own custom-built BDR appliance, but he's not doing anything for offsite. If a disaster of any kind strikes one of his clients, you have to have offsite replication for those images to protect against any kind of disaster. So what eFolder does is we work with partners that are using Appassure software, and we provision what's called a target core in the eFolder data center, which allows you to replicate from either your own BDR appliance or the eFolder BDR appliance to that data center, and then you're able to provision additional logical storage as your business grows in the eFolder cloud. Then, if you ever have a disaster of any kind, your first line of defense, of course, is the BDR appliance. Your second line of defense is you're able to get these images back if you need them. We can either ship you the media or you can download them, or alternatively, you can do it in emergency in the cloud recovery with the eFolder Continuity Cloud. So this, in our view, is the most complete BDR solution with some of the most powerful server imaging software on the market today. So these are the key components. Uniquely in the marketplace today, eFolder is the only company that provides a public cloud replication environment purpose-built for Dell Appassure software. So to get to that complete solution, you need the Dell Appassure software, either your own BDR or an eFolder BDR appliance, the replication cloud environment, the storage cloud, and then the recovery cloud. And that allows you to then turn around and take to your clients a complete backup and disaster recovery solution that allows you to generate those 70% gross margins. If you're not familiar with how we work together as companies, Dell Appassure, of course, provides the software. We provide the cloud services and the BDR appliance. And then eFolder, as a company, only works with IT solution providers and MSPs like yourself. We don't publish list pricing, so you're never going to be competing with us directly. We don't sell to end users. We help our partners take solutions to SMBs and the mid-market enterprise. So I'm going to touch on a couple key technologies. Then I'm going to turn the floor over to Matt, and he's going to do a live demo. So the first is just to comment on how public cloud replication works, talk about chain-free retention policies, global deduplication, and then just give you a glancing set of information on the eFolder BDR appliance, which we're announcing today and will begin shipping next month. So if you're not familiar with how this solution works from your own business perspective, so eFolder would provision a target core for your organization in our cloud, and we would provision a minimum of 500 gigabytes in that environment. And then you can add your first client. You install the agents on the servers or workstations, whatever you're protecting. They get backed up to the local appliance. And then the built-in replication technology from Appassure, what basically is running on this BDR appliance is what's called a source core. This source core will then replicate, based upon how you've configured it, will replicate those snapshots to the eFolder cloud. And then as you grow, as you add client number 2, as you add client number 3, you can add more logical storage to the eFolder cloud to basically give yourself more capacity, and that's how you actually pay for the service. And I won't keep you in suspense. We basically price it at 20 cents a gig. You buy it in 100 gigabyte chunks, $20 for 100 gigabytes, and you just simply add more logical storage as you grow. So it's a way for you to very finely tune, control your wholesale costs, but then you also get the benefits of all this technology in Appassure, which limit the amount of cloud storage you actually utilize. So you might have been to a couple other presentations while you've been here at the show, and eFolder has been doing cloud data backup for well over 6 years. And we're not a software company that's just adding a cloud. We're a cloud company that partners with the best software in the world to do backup and disaster recovery. So the eFolder cloud, one of the technologies I want to mention to you is silent data corruption prevention. When you are building a storage cloud that has petabytes of data, one of the things that will occur no matter what is you will have data corruption. It's not when, it's if there will be data corruption. What a cloud services provider needs to do is to defend against it. And what eFolder does is we actually take every 2K byte of data that gets backed up to our cloud, and we duplicate it. We create 4 copies of it, and then we are continuously checking for data corruption with what's been backed up to our cloud. And if there ever is corruption of any kind, we proactively repair it. If you were running your own replication environment for Appassure, this is not a technology you would easily be able to implement on your own. So this is one of the key advantages of using a public cloud that's been operating for years that's at petabyte scale. The other technology, which is pretty critical, is what we call the eFolder Continuity Cloud. So if you have a client that you need to do a recovery in the cloud, eFolder can provision on an emergency as-needed basis a compute node in our cloud environment, which allows you to download and decrypt the backed up images of the client you're trying to restore, and then you can virtualize them in that compute node. Now the important thing here is that one of the important things is that you want to have a very rich set of security features for this compute node, so you can create a so you can leverage the virtual firewall and the VPN capabilities to simulate the downed location. Now, what makes the eFolder Continuity Cloud quite unique is there's no minimums to get access to it, number one. There's no higher per gig charges to have access to it. So you could have a single client deployed with Appassure, and you have access to the eFolder Continuity Cloud. And you only use it, you only pay for it, rather, when you need it, when you use it. And you pay for it in weekly chunks. starting at $150 per week. In that computing environment, you can do 1 client restoration, 2 client restorations, or more. There is a resource limitation, so you may need to step up to a larger compute node if you're trying to restore 20 servers or something like that, or several clients. However, you only pay for it when you need it. And then the last piece, which is pretty critical, is a portal to manage all of this. So with version 5 of the Appassure software, the eFolder portal will gather all the reporting and monitoring information from all of your deployed source cores to your clients, and you're able to manage them in a single environment. And you're not only able to manage your Appassure installations here, but you're able to manage every eFolder service you have deployed. So some of you might be using eFolder backup for files. You can also manage those installations here. So you have a complete dashboard where you can manage all of these various installations. And for some of our partners, this is key. See, eFolder's vision is we operate the cloud, we plug in the software, and we help partners solve basically the data protection challenges of your clients. But Neil Hawkins, CTO of Lanair Group, says, the eFolder partner gives me a single pane of glass to manage all of our backup installations, whether Appassure, eFolder backup for files, or any other eFolder service. Matt's going to go into great detail around chain fee retention policies, but as we talked about, one of the big labor challenges in this business is managing that data sprawl you get in the data center. And Appassure allows you to go in on a client-by-client basis or a server-by-server basis and set a retention policy that dynamically rolls up and consolidates recovery points if your client doesn't need those recovery points. So with some solutions, you end up with a whole bunch of consolidated dailies and monthlies in the cloud. With this solution, you can go in and say, I just want 2 monthly recovery points for this one client. For client B, I want 6 monthly recovery points. And all of this will happen dynamically in the background. You set it once when you do a deployment, and you don't need to change it. Again, reducing the labor you need to contribute to this service offering. And you don't need to go rebase and reseed the data center at any point in the future. So Jonas Vackel, his comment is one of the biggest challenges was the need to rebase client images every couple of months. Appassure and eFolder eliminate this big time and labor cost for my BDR practice. The last technology, and Matt will show you in detail how this works actually in the demo, is global deduplication. So again, the issue is how do I control the massive amounts of data growth? Deduplication is a part of the formula. The way deduplication works, it happens at the source core level and at the target core level. And what ends up happening, if you have a client that has, say, 3 Windows 2008 servers here, and you're protecting all 3 of those machines, what actually gets logically stored here on the appliance is only the first of the 3 servers. For servers number 2 and 3, basically the software is intelligent enough to know that that's duplicated data, and so you only send markers for servers number 2 and 3. That same technique is used at the target core, so that if you're using the same encryption key for all of your, say, 10 clients, and they have similar data, they have similar server infrastructure, you're not going to be chewing up and duplicating that data up in the cloud. Again, coming back to reducing your cloud storage utilization and costs and helping you achieve those higher gross margins. The last piece is this is a real eye chart, I'm afraid, but come by our booth if you want a copy of the spec sheet. But eFolder will start shipping the eFolder BDR for Dell Appassure on November 5th. And there's 3 models to choose from. It's Dell hardware, but spec'd and configured and imaged by eFolder and then sourced from eFolder. And these appliances have very robust memory configurations, processors, and storage capabilities, which are ideal for being a storage server and serving as a standby server. They're also field upgradable, which is what you don't find with a lot of other BDR appliances out in the market. So when your clients outgrow what they have, you have to do a forklift. Here, you can just add memory or storage in the future. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Matt, and he'll give you a live demo of the actual technology. Matt, take it away.
So here we've got a look at our user interface. This is our source core environment that we've got going on here. I am selected on one of our agent machines. So with this demo environment, we have two cores, a source and a target. Target would be offsite with eFolder. We have two agents that we're protecting. Obviously, the two most mission-critical applications we have are typically an Exchange and a SQL environment. As you can see here, though, we've got some good numbers that we get to look at as far as deduplication goes. We've got one repository here that we did thick provisioning of 323 gigabytes. It's got still 275 gigabytes free of space. Now, how's that actually possible if the two agents that we're protecting combine for right around 250 gigs? It looks like we're only using something around 50 gigs of storage space. Well, through the compression and deduplication here, we get 81% of that. That's pretty huge. 140 recovery points that we have there for two machines protected. We're only using about 50 gigs. So when we take that deduplication savings and we kind of spin the ball over here onto replication and how we actually get this off-site, we have something called a read-match-write algorithm for replication. Okay? What happens here is on the source side, we actually have our keys that we match. We scan over to the target side and match those keys. So the first step is, let's see what we have present on the source side. Once we know what's here on the source, let's take a look and communicate with the target and see what they have. Whatever's missing, it's going to send us a note back that says we match this and we need whatever's missing to be sent over. So then it's real simple. We send over in a compressed and encrypted fashion what's missing. So the moment you have something missing on the target side, it doesn't mean that we have to re-replicate everything and start from scratch. We're simply just filling in the gaps. Now, with the WAN optimized replication, we also have the replication settings, which allows you for full customization here. Cache lifetime would be the connection between source and target core. It checks every 1 minute to make sure that the connection is established and you are still configured for replication. Volume image session timeout would be when we're actually sending the data over during a replication process. If it is timing out for more than 15 minutes, then we're going to cancel that job and consider it a potential failure. We also have max concurrent replication jobs. Now, if you've got a huge pipe between your source and target end, this is where you can really tweak it up and do some throttling so that you can maximize your performance. Getting your data off-site faster, pushing more data off-site means you can grow your business and work with eFolder and Dell Appassure to really maximize all of your business. Here we've got max parallel streams as well. You could consider that as you jump on the highway, how many lanes do you want to use to get your data off-site? And then max number of replication job retries. This is in the event of a failure. How many times do we want to go back in and see if we can get this connected? Now, this kind of takes us over to talking about our retention policies. Now, with the retention policies, Ted introduced this idea a little bit. We have the ability to keep all recovery points for however many days that we'd like. You could specify 365 days if you're banking, financial institution, or it's a law firm. You may have specifics and requirements that force you to keep everything forever. If that's the case, you can specify this. It's fully customizable where you can keep all recovery points for X days, and it kind of trickles down with the rules here that will apply. As you can see, this little color spectrum down at the bottom is just demonstrating that our monthlies over at the end on the purple side, that's what we're kind of keeping for a long time. That's why that date is a little bit older, because that's the actual monthly period that we're capturing and maintaining. And then it comes to the more recent ones. So this spectrum will grow a little bit as you've got more data within that time period. So you'll be able to have a little bit more visual gauge and guidance on what date and time stamps are taking up some of your storage. That allows you to understand, do I need to trim up a little bit of the fat on the end here? Right? Full customizations. So kind of works in the trickling down of rules. You can keep all recovery points for X amount of days that you specify, and then you keep one recovery point per hour. Now, if you've got a 15-minute snapshot interval, which is pretty much best practice for an Exchange environment. If you've got it set up to capture on that interval, you're going to have 15-minute snapshots. That's 4 snapshots per hour. So how do we consolidate or roll up these snapshots to become an hourly? We take the most recent one of that hour. Okay, so right up to the point when that 4th one is captured, we take the 3 previous, roll it up into that 4th. And that method just applies throughout the entire process here. So when we take the hourlies and go into make it a daily, we take that 24th hourly one and we roll all 23 up into that 24th. That one becomes the daily. So we're essentially creating a lot of synthetic images here as we go through the retention policy. Please take a note, though, that we also have the ability to keep a recovery point for a year. Okay? That's something that is a requirement for some businesses, as I mentioned earlier. Now, here's where we're going to talk with a little bit of a diagram on deduplication. We've got our source and target core. Okay? We can imagine that replication is going to exist between these 2 locations, right? But to try to break it down and make it real simple, when we set up replication, we're going to want to get all of our data off-site immediately. That's the idea. So the quickest way is to throw it on to a seed or a physical unit and then ship that off-site and get the target set up and up to speed. Okay? When we do this archive job and archive it to a seed, we are deduplication aware when we do that, which means we're going to dedupe and make sure that this data that comes here is not going to be as raw and robust. We're not going to need as much storage in order to complete this operation. So terabytes are going to be reduced drastically when you're throwing it onto the seed. Then we ship the seed off-site. That would be the eFolder side where they receive the seed, and within their 48-hour SLA, they consume that data on the target end. Okay? Many of the other products, unfortunately, have this setback where while you're doing this whole seed operation, nothing is able to be replicated out. So the moment you click play or start on this operation or this job, you've got all of these recovery points that are kind of accumulating and snowballing. Well, as soon as we click the go button to do the archive job, everything else that's not included on the archive seed job gets real-time replicated over the target end. This is great so that once you actually consume all of your data, an eFolder within that 48-hour period gives you the thumbs up, green light, we're all good. You have the peace of mind knowing that all of the other data that wasn't on the seed is there already. So again, we seed the base image in incrementals 1, 2, 3, 4, X, N, whatever number we're going to. That goes on the seed drive. As the seed drive is being shipped, you have these other incrementals, 5, 6, 7, 8, that are being replicated. So the moment that gets out there, you're already going to have data that's present on the target side. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and pull over to our live environments here. Just want to navigate a little bit and show you how this UI works out. It's very smooth. We don't try to overcomplicate anything. As you can see, we've got a list of alerts and all of the information that would be pertinent for you understanding what's actually going on. Now, we can see here in our replication tab, we have outgoing replication to AA Core 2. That would be our target core at eFolder. It is established, and we have 2 machines, the Exchange and the SQL agent, that we're sending data off for. Okay. Now, if we go into the configuration tab, we can select the retention policy, and that gets us right to where that screenshot was before, where you can customize it. Now, the brilliant part of retention policy is you can set the retention policy at the core level, and that will kind of be the grandfather rule for everything that follows. Or you can get in to the agent level, and if you go to the configuration tab and specify a retention policy, you have an option here. Okay? You can decide between using the core default retention policy, which is what we had set before, or you can specify a custom retention policy for this agent. You can do this for any of the machines that are protected. Now, let me go ahead and jump over to the target core just to make sure that you guys have a little bit of visibility on what that may look like. So over here on the target core, as you can see, the replicated machines, this is the inbound replication jobs that are coming in. All right? We have AA Core 1, which is the source core that we have sending its protected machine data to us. That would be the Exchange agent and the SQL agent in the source on site at the source location. Now, if we go to the Replication tab, we'll see that, well, we have AA Core 1 sending our replication data of the two machines. That looks good. Click on the Events tab, and you're going to see that there are snapshots that are happening and coming through. And every time we get the snapshot that comes through, we also have replication jobs that immediately fire it off. So when you set up this replication to get your data offsite, it doesn't mean that your protection of the source environment is going to be paused or suspended temporarily. We maintain protection of the environment, and as the replication is taking place, we're capturing data, and as new data and new recovery points come in, bam, we're shooting them over offsite to eFolder, making sure that everything's stored and appropriate there. All of our communication and data occurs over SSL 3.0, and we have 256-bit encryption keys. Now, if we take a look at the target core's repository, we saw that we got some good numbers out of the source core's repository with compression and deduplication. On the target core, we're seeing pretty substantial numbers as well. Block compression rate, 81%. Right? We've got dedupe hits, dedupe misses, all sorts of information that you'd want to know about your deduplication, record, input, output, and your storage engine. Now, it's important to understand that you can also add more storage locations, so you can provision additional repositories. This is key because our deduplication occurs globally over all repositories for your target core or your source core. So on your source on-site location, you have deduplication existing for all of the repositories. And on the target location at eFolder, deduplication is existing for all of those repositories as well. So if you have your clients with, let's say, 10 clients and each has a core, you're going to have deduplication specific for each one of those cores, and the client gets their own little bit of deduplication. But if you start throwing your data offsite to eFolder and you have one target core that's receiving 10 inbound replication jobs, you're going to have all of that data being deduped in one pool. And that's really where you maximize your savings. I'm going to bounce back to the PowerPoint presentation here. And again, just to wrap this up real quick, when we're sending our data offsite for the preload and the seed, we have the real-time replication job taking place and sending our incrementals that are accumulating. That gets over offsite immediately. Once the seed job is complete, all of your data offsite is up to date. That's the key point there. I'm going to pass this back to Ted now.
Well, let's do this. Let me, are there questions? Does anyone have any technical questions? Right here.
What's the impact of this defragmentation on the size of the incremental backups?
So the impact of disk defragmentation on the size of the incrementals. Right. Okay. Well, as with every image backup, as long as the file system remains healthy and the blocks are healthy, there will be no issue there. But If there's a lot of fragmentation, there's no scientific method or algorithm that states, hey, what's the threshold for when we're going to capture a larger size? But worst case scenario, if it's heavily fragmented, you may not be able to capture it. VSS may not be able to capture it. So as long as VSS is capable of capturing it, Microsoft Volume Shadow Copy Service, if that subsystem is able to fly, then we'll be able to work with it. Great question.
Other questions? Where's the source? Yeah, which this is the source. Just re-explain source and target. Yeah.
Okay, great question. So I'm just going to talk about the actual devices here in this diagram. So we've got our source core. This would be the BDR appliance. We've got a target core, which would be the core environment spun up for you by eFolder. And then we've got a seed drive, which could be an external USB 3.0 drive, whatever you'd like to use. Okay? So we take our source core environment, the BDR appliance, and we do an archive job where it actually, perhaps what may be confusing is it's overly simplified. Wondering maybe where's the storage going on? So the question is, he would like to do a lot on the source on-site location and send less to the off-site location. Right now, for best practice in data integrity, you're going to want to make sure that your retention policy on the source side is matched on the target as well. Okay? It makes sure that your entire recovery, RTO, and the verification of your data when you're trying to restore is going to be good and confirmed. So the retention policy set at the source core, whether it be on the core level or the agent level, is inherited to the target core. So when rollup runs on the source side, there's no rollup that runs on the target side. We run rollup on the source, and then we send the changes of the rollup job over to the target. And that's where it updates. So great question. Can we do bandwidth throttling so that the data transfers do not saturate the network during periods of time? We do not have a replication schedule established at this moment, but what we do have is the full customization of that graphic that I showed a second ago. We just jump right back into this one. Here allows full customization. So when we're talking about bandwidth throttling, right now, max concurrent replication jobs, you can scale that up or scale it down depending on what your infrastructure is. It seems like you're interested more on scaling back to keep it thin. Max parallel streams, you can reduce this down. That'll help not overly saturate your network with the data that you're sending off-site. So the question is there replication priority configuration available on a per-day basis that during the week we will have it low priority on the network, but on the weekends we'll have it the top priority on the network. Is that correct? So even weekends and during the evenings. Excellent question. And that's more of a replication schedule itself, and that's on the roadmap. We're going to be releasing that shortly. What we do have the ability for is everything that you see here with the configuration settings, and we work nicely with a third-party tool. I know a lot of our customers work with, I believe, NetLimiter, and that's good bandwidth throttling where they can prioritize for that transferring. Thank you for the question. Yes?
What if the client decides that they want the BDR device in-house so they can spin up images, but they really don't want to spend the money to offsite all of that information in the cloud? They really just want that peace of mind knowing that their files, maybe SQL backups and maybe an Exchange backup is there, but not a full image. Can we do that?
I understood the question up until the last point. I understood it as if we have the BDR appliance on site for a client and they don't have any interest in getting their data off site because that would be an additional cost, could they do everything on site?
No, actually, a little bit further than that. Be able to spin up the virtuals on site. So if it, your 90 percentile, but if you hit that 10 percentile, they don't necessarily want to pay that full gambit of all of their data being out there, but rather pay for those files that keep their business up and running, or those SQL database, just copies of the SQL database, but not the images of the OS. They're willing to take a little bit of downtime to rebuild those servers off-site and not have to store it all in the cloud, but just the pertinent data, the data that keeps your business running.
So I guess, I mean, I think the issue is that you can use a file-based backup solution for cloud backup, as an alternative. I mean, number one, you don't have to replicate off-site. I see the gentleman in the room right now who's doing using Appassure version 4, and he's not replicating off-site. So you don't have to replicate off-site, but you can combine a solution like this. You get the benefits of image-based backup, the benefits of the BDR appliance for local recovery, but you could use a eFolder file backup for files to off-site to the cloud, only those files that you consider really the crown jewels of the company. But what, of course, you're introducing is longer recovery times if there's a site-wide disaster. So that's one of the beauties of working with eFolders. You're able to mix and match these different data protection solutions into a combined solution that meets your client requirements. And I think the other thing that maybe wasn't clear is the retention policies. You can have different retention policies for different client requirements. So some clients are going to end up, quote unquote, costing you more in terms of their cloud storage utilization if, for instance, they have really long, they have their recovery point and retention policies are more fine-grained and longer term. So those clients, you need to, whatever your pricing model is, you've got to factor in clients that have very fine-grained recovery points are going to use more storage locally and in the cloud. And if they have long retention policies, they're going to use more cloud storage as well. So that's just something to keep in mind from a pricing perspective. But the beauty here is that you can change the retention policy either on the server agent level or at the client level at the source core. So I think in the interest of time, so we end on time, maybe one more question and then we'll wrap up and get you guys out of here on time. Go ahead, yeah. Good transition, thank you very much. So how does this service priced? There's basically three components that are your wholesale cost drivers. Number one, you have the cost of the BDR appliances. Come by the eFolder and Dell Appassure booth afterwards if you want a spec sheet to see the details. But basically, there's three models, and they range from $2,500 up to $16,500. So that's the upfront for the appliance. You can also build your own appliance, and I'll show a diagram of that. The other component is the Dell Appassure software. The main way partners license it is with the MSP model, which is $50 per protected machine per month. If you're able to commit, if you have 20, 30, 50, if you have 50, 60, 70 servers, there is a volume rate card for that pricing. But basically, $50 per protected agent per month. And then the cost driver for the eFolder service, you basically buy it in $20 per 100 gigabytes, which is effectively 20 cents a gig. And you buy that in 100 gigabyte chunks. To become an eFolder partner, you need to make a minimum commitment of 500 gigs, which is just $100 a month for 12 months. So $100 a month, $1,200 bucks as a minimum commitment. But 500 gigs is a really low starting point. But as your client base grows, as you add client 2, 3, 4, 10, you can simply, month by month, add more logical storage in that target core in the eFolder cloud. And then the continuity cloud, our continuity cloud, 1 week is included. So any eFolder partner that's using our Appassure services, they get 1 week included per year. So if you ever have any kind of outage for a client, you can use the continuity cloud. You get that 1 week included. Additional weeks are $150 a week for the medium node, $450 a week for the large node. Now, the important thing here is you only pay for the continuity cloud when and if you need it. But you always have it available, and we have capacity for thousands of servers at the ready if there were a major disaster ever struck. So that's the pricing. The other caveat I wanted to make is that we have well over 100 MSPs already utilizing this service, so we're shipping the BDR appliance next month, the first week of November. However, we have partners that have built their own local source core servers and are, they're using any brand of hardware you wish, and that's a perfectly valid deployment model. You can use the eFolder Dell appliance, or you can use your own, and we basically give you guidance on how to resource that machine and provision it. But we have over 100 partners already utilizing this service with this deployment model because we're not yet shipping the BDR appliance. It combines the Appassure software with our cloud, and that's a very valid way to do it. So if you're interested if you're familiar with Appassure, if you've liked what you've seen, if you see good value, if you're interested in those 70% gross margins, which are extremely realistic, and you're impressed by some of the deduplication capabilities you've seen in the solution today, you can sign up as an eFolder partner. When you sign up as an eFolder partner, you get access to every eFolder service we have available. You get access to partner branding, so all of our solutions are brandable with your name. All the billing is wholesale, monthly recurring. All of our support is made in America. You have access to the partner portal like I mentioned earlier, and your minimum commitment is basically just making a minimum commitment of 500 gigs for this service, which is $100 a month. And that gets you access to everything that eFolder provides. So if you are interested in signing up, we are offering a show special, an opportunity to sign up today. Basically, you can sign up today as an eFolder partner if you're not yet a partner. And basically, this Appassure service, we will provide the first 3 months for free. If you want 500 gigs, that's a minimum savings of $300. If you provision a terabyte or more, it can get up to $600 to $900. But this offer is only available today in this room if you're interested in signing up right now. And really important point, though, is that if you sign the agreement today, we'll provision your target core next week. You start utilizing it, we can set you up with a trial license for free of the Appassure software. You try it, you don't like it. After 28, 29, 30 days, you say, I don't want to be an eFolder partner. Disconnect it. No costs whatsoever to you. So if you are interested, please just raise your hand and we'll drop a contract off and you can sign up today. Okay, we're going to be here for a couple more minutes. We have a couple more minutes for questions, a couple minutes for final questions. Right here. So the question was, if you're already an eFolder partner, how do you get started with this service? All you need to do, if you're interested in starting to use this service, is you basically need to provision, we need to provision a minimum of 500 gigs in the Appassure target core. That's the only requirement. Now, in terms of Appassure software licensing, you are free to source your Appassure licensing from Dell, or you can source it from eFolder. It's your choice. Any other questions? Whereabouts? Sorry, right here. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so the first question is, what is the SLA on hardware replacement? So it's 24 hours on site, right, with Dell, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically the highest level of on-site support, Dell Pro support comes with these 3 appliances. Okay, so that's the first thing in terms of the on-site Dell warranty that comes with the appliance. And then the SLA in terms of getting the data back. So we can ship on a 24-hour basis next day. Cutoff time is 1 p.m. Eastern. We can ship you the images on physical media the next day, and we only charge you if you don't return the physical drives we sent to ship you. No, we don't have a limitation on that. It's just there's a cutoff, and we will do next day shipment, 24-hour next day shipment of the physical media. So that's one amongst several recovery options you have. Yeah, question here.
If you're doing you have the continuity cloud, we get 1 week of. Like
So I'll repeat the question. So the question is, how do you use the Continuity Cloud as a means for doing testing for disaster recovery preparedness for your clients? You basically pay for it by the week. So if you were using the eFolder services for Appassure, you would get 1 week included. Those don't roll. If you don't use it, it doesn't roll into year 2, just a quick caveat. But if you wanted to do that monthly, month 1, January would be free. February, if it took you a week to do your testing, you'd basically provision it for $150, and that's your fixed wholesale cost, no extra cost. So, I mean, the Continuity Cloud, that's one of the really big use cases is doing, you know, disaster preparedness testing for your clients for an extra fee. Or maybe that's part of your platinum package if you heard, you know, if that's your MSP strategy. Okay, any other questions? So we're going to be here for a couple more minutes. If you are interested in signing up, the first 3-month offer is only available today, 30-day satisfaction guarantee. I want to thank you very much for your time and attention, and look forward to seeing you at the booth. Thank you.
Thank you.